Hey Portland, how you doing? This is Ray Lane with Halfcast on TalkCastPDX.com. And today I have a wonderful and most amazing guest, Jamie Mustard, author, director, documentarian, all around, amazing guy. I got to meet him just recently at a party. We got to talking and it was wonderful. And so here he is in the studio to continue our conversation from the party to the podcast.
Raymond,
how you doing, man?
Good. Thank you for having me.
Okay, now we're past the formalities. So basically, you gave me this book, The Iconist. Which camera, Justin? Is it this one? Yeah, The Iconist. You gave me this book, The Iconist by Jamie Mustard.
I did.
I read it cover to cover and then read some other areas over again just to let it sink in. Obviously, the section with melodies and music, since being a songwriter myself, I'd spent most of my career resisting something that didn't need to be resisted. And this book, unlike everybody else in my life that said, Ray, just go along and do you, but, be bold,
Yeah. I mean, it's interesting. You introduced me as an author and a documentarian, and I guess I wrote a book and I'm writing another one right now.
You're much more than that, obviously.
No. And I did a documentary and I'm writing another documentary, but I really see myself as a fine artist, as an art director. And, I'm humbly moving between different mediums. And I kind of feel like if you, after years and years and years of doing it, that, you develop the ability to kind of move between. So ultimately, I just see myself as an artist.
Yes. Oh, yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah.
It strikes me, though, that when an artist actually produces amazing works, it does define categories of what he's done.
So well, whether that book is amazing or not depends on who you talk to. But why I wrote it and why it's important is because I had a really long, crazy journey from how I got to now. And I think that a lot of artists and creators get stuck. Yes. There's no path. Like if you want to go into the NFL or the NBA, there's a path. Like you become a high school standout, you go Div 1, there's a draft, right? There's a path to, even if it's a hard path, there's a path. If you want to be an actor or a painter or a musician, that path is also hard, but it's far more murky.
Right.
So the book was meant to demystify how to stand out, not just for artists, but also ultimately it's a business book as well for entrepreneurs. Why do we notice one thing and why do we discard another? There's actually primal laws as to why that is.
Right, which I found fascinating.
Yeah, and I write and I codify those in that book.
Right, it's beautiful. Yeah, I read a bunch of different sections in here and took pictures of pages, and sent them to Darren, my co-writer and partner. And we were just musing on. He was like, "Man, this is things you and I have been talking about, for years." But it's just really all condensed into a wonderful manual for the artists and the artist's business, the business of art, and just gives you a reality of what's going on in society.
It demystifies what the barriers are and how to do it. I mean, there's a reason we pay attention to one song and it just grabs us and we discard another. Right. There's a reason our eyes lock on a painting and we just don't lock on another painting. And it has a lot to do with the same reasons we lock onto a warning label or a road sign. But, what's interesting about it is we were talking about, are we going to talk about the past? Right.
Right.
But the reality is that I grew up in slums with a lot of abandonment issues and a lot of, it was like Lemony Snicket's series of unfortunate events, right? And so it took a long time to climb out of that. But people a lot of the time ask me, how did you do that? How does that become that? And I kind of like it. I kind of see myself as an escape artist, like escapology.
Houdini reference.
Yeah. I see my journey as Houdiniing myself out of traps and constraints,
right? And
just flipping from one to the other. I mean, the biggest trick, my greatest trick was breaking out of poverty mindset. I mean, that is that's like David Copperfield making a plane disappear.
Yeah, I
right?
talk about the slave mentality, the poverty mentality all the time.
Yeah, it's really hard
You
to
can't
see.
throw enough money at it.
It's really hard to get anyone to see something when all you've seen is what you've seen. That's what you expect of yourself. So
Sure.
that's my greatest trick.
Yeah.
And not something that I ever thought that I was going to ever outrun. Because when you grow up like that, you can smell it on people. And I always figured people could smell it on me, and they would always smell it on me.
Sure.
And there was a point when I was in college where I realized that people aren't smelling this on me. Huh. How far could I go?
Yeah.
What could I do?
That's amazing. Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
So,
No.
yeah.
And that's what fascinated me about the book and our conversation was just paradigm in paradigms, just everything being about perspective. Your perception of your reality, and creating your own masterpiece is what you're doing.
Well, one of the things I'm curious about,
Go for it.
Raymond,
Here we go.
Is the name of this show.
Yes.
Halfcast.
Yes.
I came on virtually because of the name, right? So what does halfcast mean? What is the origin? What does it mean to be halfcast? I'm interviewing you now, Raymond.
Yes. Well, briefly, it was going to be gollywog because that's what they called me in England growing up.
Yeah.
Wog, coon, everything that you were familiar. We share a commonality in that we're both biracial. One parent white, one parent black.
Again, it depends on who you talk to.
Exactly.
There's this thing called science.
Yes, they're exactly right.
And science actually figured out that there's
no difference
only one race.
Exactly.
If you have 2 chocolate cakes,
right,
and you put vanilla frosting on one,
right,
and you put chocolate frosting on the other,
what do you get?
What kind of cakes do you have?
The same cake.
I say you have 2 chocolate cakes.
Right.
That's what science says.
Right.
This is absolute science.
Right.
And so, that being said, I always say to myself, that race means everything, and race is a complete construct and means nothing. In this country, people talk about race like we're talking about 2 different species. Like, he's a gazelle and that's a water buffalo. No, right. Really, if the scientific absolutism is that outside of the pigmentation in our skin, the broadness of our noses, and the coarseness of our hair, we are identical.
Yeah.
That being said,
culture plays a
That being said, being a person of mixed race or a person that bought into that construct as a child, I don't think that I would be. It was a living hell. But I can't imagine that I would be anything close to what I am as a person. I'm not saying good, bad. Just my makeup would not be the same if I had just been black, or if I had just been
so much easier
white.
I mean, I never bought into anything. I was basically had it pounded into me. It was forged in the iron, in the steel, the furnace of England's underbelly. Issues with race.
I was lucky growing up in these Los Angeles slums that there was all these cultures, right? So it got me thinking about different ways of living, right?
You were not an odd duck.
Koreans, Mexicans, Armenians, Guatemalans, Nicaraguans. It was a soup, and I hated it. But when I got older, I found that I could be in any situation and always feel comfortable and always be respectful and curious about other cultures. So I think it saved my life. But at the time, I just thought, it's dirty down here.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's hard. And it's,
It's a gift, though. If life is about many philosophies I studied, life is suffering. To live is to suffer. But the suffering is the gift. This is what I've always believed. If you come
I've had far too many gifts in my life. Then
we both had a lot of gifts.
Far too many gifts.
I am blessed with all kinds of treasure.
And at this point, I'm returning the gifts. Yeah, I'm not accepting.
But do
any
you
more
have
gifts.
the receipts?
I have the. I mean, the thing is, really, at this point, I'm not. I'm far, far, far away from suffering, and I don't plan to suffer in the future.
Sure.
Knock on wood. That wasn't a bang. It was a knock. When you've gone through what I've gone through, and I don't want to make your audience cringe, but I had an existential crisis. I mean, I at some point, in the last 15 years ago, 15 years ago, maybe, I was like, why? Maybe, I don't even know if it was that long ago, but maybe there's been a few. But, you go through this thing where why on earth would any human being go through that level of pain and misery and suffering for such a prolonged period of time, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the only kind of answer I can come up with in terms of an existential way of viewing the world is to increase my empathy, to be able to help and uplift others, to be able to see deeper.
Compassion.
Yeah,
Mindfulness.
compassion. So as much as
Mm-hmm.
it almost killed me, and that's why I wouldn't wish it upon my worst enemy, I do think it informs almost everything I do now.
I think it gives you a wonderful perspective, an
Yeah.
overview of the big picture. It enables you to step back a little bit further than most.
Yeah, and I think that, kind of back to this mixed race thing, which actually doesn't really exist,
Mm-hmm.
but it did for me when I was
For
a
me
kid.
also.
When I was a kid, growing up in the 70s and 80s, there weren't a lot of people that looked like me in the media. They were either black or they were white. There wasn't like a Vin Diesel, like what is that guy, right?
The Rock, yeah,
Yeah, or The Rock. There wasn't those guys in the media, so there was, you didn't see anybody that looked like you reflected. So I didn't feel like I belonged anywhere.
me either. Yeah,
And
Yep.
I don't know how. I'll be curious how you react to this statement. My solution, in my, I mean, it probably was various times I made this decision, starting as maybe a preteen, but my solution was fuck all y'all.
Right. I didn't reach that conclusion and still haven't yet.
Do you know what I mean by that?
I do. I've heard it said a lot. It seems to be a reoccurring theme in my life of me saying I don't give a fuck, but truthfully, deep down inside, I still kind of do.
Fuck all y'all is
Right.
different than I don't give a fuck. Fuck all y'all is
Right.
this.
Right.
Okay. I have black people in my family, people that are dark skinned. They resent you for being light. White people don't even know what to do. What is he? Black people, don't totally, you're in this middle ground.
Understood.
And between the poverty, the abandonment, the illiteracy, just the pain of life, and being a complete alien because I had no example of me in the world, I felt like I reached a crossroads as a preteen where it was kind of like, I'm going to shrink and become nothing and disappear into the brick with all the other brown boys that are invisible where I was growing up, or fuck all y'all. I'm going to do it my fucking way,
Right.
and I'm going to define myself. And the only thing that is going to define what I am is what I decide. And I don't know how I was able to really truly come to that, but I came to it, and I've lived my. It's informed everything in my life. What that did for me, and I don't think I've ever really talked about it like this before, is I'm never looking over my shoulder or at another person for approval as to what I'm going to do.
Wow.
I choose what I do based on what resonates with me. That was training from preteen where it was like, well, nobody's coming for me, so I'm doing it my way. So what's my way? And so being, I have young writers of all complexions that come to me. I just did a writers group at Georgetown University, 500 young writers on this Zoom lecture.
I bet that was a treat.
It's just amazing having how I grew up just to be able to do stuff like that. And young writers come to me all the time and they say things like, Jamie, I just feel like alienated, like I don't fit in. Right. Mm-hmm. And I say, that's the fucking job. That's the job. Your job as an artist, your job as a writer, you're looking through the fishbowl, right? If you're in the fishbowl, you can't paint the fishbowl. Yeah. Right. You can't write the fishbowl. You can't draw the fishbowl. You can't music the fishbowl. So, it's like, it would like be, I tell them, I liken it to this. I say, listen, that's you saying that to me, that you don't want the isolation on some level is like telling me you want to be a coal miner, but you don't like coal dust. You don't want to come out. You don't want to get black stuff on you. Like that is the job. That's what gives you the ability to see and have something to say.
You mentioned something about nobody's coming for you. A friend of mine, Darren, who you will meet when you come to LA when I'll be down there. He had said something along the lines of, no one's coming to save you. And that put the fear of God in me, because I've always, like Blanche Dubois, I'd always looked for the kindness of others. I'd always relied on the kindness of others. And he said, dude, no one has come and no one is coming to save you.
Yeah. I don't know. There's kind of a paradox in that. Okay, because
Go ahead.
yeah, no. So
Go
here's
ahead.
what that makes me think, and this is probably important. I don't want to sound like I'm, David
With my
Goggins.
dad, yeah,
I'm
with
not
my
David
no,
Goggins.
but with
Can't
my
hurt me.
with my dad's,
Yeah.
son, the world's a cold, hard place, and you're alone in it. When I told you my dad had said that,
I was like,
it
God,
really impacted you. You were like, oh, dude, that's go ahead.
yeah, because I had the opposite experience. I had a
Go ahead.
relative that that told me when I was 16. She flew me out to the East Coast, and she said, "You can come stay in this house. There's only one way you can pay to stay in this house, and that is to be in some sort of school." Because I'd barely gone to school my entire life.
Yeah, talk about that. You had
Well, I barely went to school. I mean, and when I did go to school, it was just on paper. I didn't go to classes. I didn't have glasses. I sat at the back of the class. I was, an F student, totally a child of neglect and abandonment. I grew up sometimes in institutional like environments without my parents. So, I went there when I was 16, and I was so illiterate that I couldn't face trying to fix myself. Like, you ever see Men in Black?
Yes,
the first one.
The first one.
Vincent D'Onofrio plays that alien. I had this incredible amount of force in my head, ideas, things, but I didn't have the language of math and English in order to communicate it. In the way I was like a kind of a Helen Keller, because I couldn't express.
You were shut in.
Yeah. So that actually resulted in me physically almost being. Whenever I watch that movie, the original Men in Black, and I see Vincent D'Onofrio, the way he's like walks, it was like I was uncomfortable in my own body. Mm-hmm. So I told her I just couldn't do it, and I flew back to Los Angeles. At 19, staring down the barrel of a life of manual labor.
Yeah.
I called that same relative and I said, does the offer still stand? And she said yes. And I said, send me a ticket. And I started off doing remedial classes in math and English, like not even knowing basic sentence structure. I could read at a high level, but I probably had a second grade writing level. So I could consume but not express. I went from remedial classes at a community college to graduating from the London School of Economics in just over 5 years. And it almost killed me.
Yeah. I mean, that was very impressive when you told me that, getting back to the no one's coming for you and no one's coming.
But then my point of that story is that someone came for me. I don't buy
exactly right.
As much as like I took you have to take the viewpoint of you have to save yourself. You have to come for yourself.
Absolutely.
Otherwise, nothing's going to happen for you. That being said, I'm very distinctly not a believer in this concept of you can pull yourself up by your bootstraps. I think it's
that always
total bullshit. Yeah, it's total bullshit.
Just irritates me when certain people say that.
I think it's bullshit.
Roll your sleeves up and hey, I did it. I took.
I don't think anybody does it. I think you need people. Yeah. Angels came for me.
Right.
There was always an angel looking out for me somewhere. And I'm not saying that in the religious sense. Yeah. You know what I'm saying?
Yes, I do. And the irony in what Darren had said was when he had said that to me, he actually started to show up. That was the funny part of that statement. From that point on, he was always there. We'd known each other 25, 30 years, right? Since the beginning of my doing music, we've been in each other's orbit. But he said that to me, and I'd never heard anybody say anything like that. It was so damning. Because of me being one of those people who always seems to like to rely and work and co-work. Tell me about your need, or if any, because it sounds like you're a satellite. You're not really a connector. You work with everybody, but you really are the nucleus of everything that's going on. You don't need anybody to come save you. You're not depending on anybody. You're not reliant on anybody.
I'm reliant on people. I think we're human beings. We're reliant individuals. We can't survive without a path.
However, if you didn't have them, I have a suspicion that you would still be forward motivated to write a book, to graduate the University of London.
I'm a hustler.
You would still make it happen.
You could drop me. I'm different. I'm a hustler.
Yes.
I mean, you could drop me tomorrow in Beirut, Lebanon, with 50 cents and a cell phone, and I would be running a nightclub by the end of the week.
Right.
Right. Here's
a visionary more than a hustler to me. I understand the hustle.
Yeah.
The struggle's real, but Jeff and I, when we met you, first thing I said to him was, that guy's a visionary.
It's interesting. I don't believe in genius the way that most people, or being a visionary in the way that most people think.
Because we're all.
I think anybody has that in them. I think accomplishment is curiosity applied over decades. and that anybody can do extraordinary things, applying curiosity over decades. The question is, how do you get the stamina to do that?
Mm.
And the answer to that is this, right? You know, it's funny. I'm a resident iconist and writer at Forbes Ignite. Forbes Ignite is the social meaning or social change arm of Forbes Media. And they had asked me to do a video of what my definition of wealth was, what my definition of net worth was, right?
Mm.
And I said, and I did this video for them, and I said, this idea that what's in your bank account and all the shit you own and your stocks and your portfolio is your worth. That's your worth. Bullshit. That's your assets.
Mm.
Okay. There's only two things that determine your worth: relationships, and then in terms of what drive our lives, meaning.
Mm.
Meaning is your worth.
Mm-hmm.
So one of the questions people ask me with getting kicked in the teeth and all the things that happened to me before I broke through, right? It's kind of like, how do you do that? Because most people get kicked in the teeth 10, 15 times and they're like, well, this isn't
That's
just
it.
going to happen to me.
That's not the right path. I'm on
And
the
this-
wrong path.
And this didn't really start to happen for me until middle age, right? So
Mm.
most people like, hey, shit, it doesn't happen to you by the time you're 40. It's not happening, right? And it happened for me after that. So, you know, what sustained me was this concept of I never bought into the society's, there's a great line in that new movie Nomadland, the tyranny of the dollar.
Yeah.
I was never going to define myself
No.
by this construct that's only, a couple thousand years old, right? We lived for 50,000 years as a species without this concept of cash
And
determining
ownership.
our value.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't even think from an evolutionary standpoint that I think it dehumanizes us.
Right.
So I always stuck to meaning as wealth. So even when I was poor, when I had that realization in my 20s, probably, I felt wealthy because I was doing things that filled me with, as Kevin Carroll would say, filled me with joy.
Yeah, that's what it's all about.
Yeah. What would you, or as Kevin,
happiness,
as author, Kevin Carroll wrote an incredible book called The Rules of the Red River Ball.
Mm.
It's like, how do you find your meaning? It's like, what would you do for free? What sets your soul on fire? Well, if you're always chasing that and you never made a dime and you died in obscurity, that's a better life than sitting in a mansion, than collecting houses and boats. Right. So it's one thing, so to me, if you want to know how to get up over and over again, and I don't think this is anything I've ever talked about before, in an interview, if you really can live meaning, and it's hard because you'll be watching TV or you'll be around people that have resources and everything will tell you, but it's like Instagram. It's a lie.
Oh yeah.
The only thing that fills us, the only thing that sustains us is meaning. Relationships are a part of meaning. So meaning is really the only true wealth.
Yeah. Yeah. When you were talking about being kicked in the mouth, Eckhart, I remember reading Eckhart Tolle, who's saying that if you want to do something of importance, of real meaning, expect all things to come and challenge you and test you, hurdles, obstacles. Expect that. It comes part and parcel with the territory of wanting to be bold and stand out. But if you want to go to Vegas, no disrespect to card dealers, and be a card dealer, expect that to be the easiest path. Nothing will get in your way. You will go right there, apply for the job, get it, and you'll be dealing cards for the rest of your life in a casino. There'll be no resistance, no obstacles. But to truly want and pursue greatness, to be bold, to be innovative, to create something. So that's basically what you're saying, that they kicked in the teeth 15 times and saying, this isn't for me. No, that could be exactly what's for
and
you.
people need to know, when you have some success or you do work that resonates with people, or when I used to see that when I was younger, before it happened to me, I would always think when that happened for people, even whether they were poor or wealthy or whoever they were, that they were somehow anointed. They were born like that. And all I can say is that I was the least likely an anointed person that I know. I mean, I'm the last person that should be having this conversation with you right now. And the amount of doubt and imposter syndrome and shame and every kind of thing that would make someone quit and make someone go off the path and make someone, I mean, I am covered in scars, and I am covered in,
Nice
and you know, having a background like that, it never goes away. Like
nice imagery.
it's like an open wound, right?
I'll write a song
Yeah.
for you, bro.
Okay, man. So, but the question is, even when those days are when I'm just like, why did I do this? If I just had a regular job for the last 15 years, I'd have big fat 401k and stocks, and I'm smart, and I got offered those jobs. The only during those doubts, I'd go to bed saying I blew it all.
Mhm.
And then I wake up the next morning feeling a little better, and I think meaning, and I just keep going. You know,
That's a great foundation to stand upon. I love that. It's a great philosophy.
yeah. The song that probably used to haunt me when I was a kid was that Talking Head song, right?
Same as it ever was.
Yeah, yeah.
Same as it ever was.
But really, this concept. This is not my beautiful house.
This is not my beautiful. Yeah.
This is not my beautiful
I
wife.
understand.
My God, what have I done?
done?
Yeah, right. So that song probably is one of those songs that probably altered the course of my life.
Yeah.
Because because I would always think I don't want to wake up, on the other side of the world, driving a strange automobile, driving a large automobile.
How did this happen?
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
So, and I also think it's really interesting. I mean, again, this is like something that comes from being mixed and choosing my own way of looking at the world. I went to this idea that living for our retirement, everything is about saving, so that time when we hit 70, we can just kind of go, and then we're physically not in any shape where we can do the things we would have loved to have done. Right.
I've never been able to.
And then what if
that?
Yeah. What if we get cancer and die at 50 and we did all that saving? Like, I always thought that was like, it's balance.
The balance is fine. I'm fine with that. Make your money, be secure. Get your, my ex-wife would say, well, Ray, if you don't snap in the gear and come into reality, then your lack of responsibility puts burden on other around you.
Yeah. You have to have balance, and what does Woody Allen say? Having money is great, if only for financial reasons.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. No, you have to have balance, but you have to live, right? There's the research that shows that acquiring more things is not what tends to enhance our lives or our happiness. It's experiences.
And you, thank you. And you have found in your life, certainly from what we talked about, you've come into contact with a lot of people with great wealth financially.
I have.
And great education and all these amazing things. And so have I. For some reason, we seem to get into situations where we're either dating or in close proximity and relationship to people who have all this stuff going on, and you're looking at them and they're looking at you, and they want to know more from you than you do from them.
Sure.
I mean, I've known people where I'm like, if I had your amount of money, I would just do something else. I would live life, because you're going into work every day and you're making gobs of money, but you're afraid to stop.
I've had dinner in Monaco in a house with 40-foot frescoes, with royalty attending, dinner with the Imperial Princess of France.
Right.
I mean, I've just had so many
weird things that keeps happening, right?
Yeah, I'm an intellectual Forrest Gump.
Right. That's what I feel like sometimes. Like, you're around these people that have so much.
Yeah, but the thing
they're so starving and hungry for life, for meaning.
Mel Brooks made an incredible movie called The High Anxiety, where it's when you have wealth without meaning, you actually go insane. You can have a lot of fun having a lot of money, but only if you have meaning connected to it.
Sure.
And only if you have a code of existence in terms of the way that you treat and interact with others. Money can be very isolating, right? And so it drives you mad. I mean, I crossed class in Hollywood, and I could tell you this, and the road to the streets of Los Angeles are painted with the blood of Hollywood producers, Hollywood actors, and billionaires. And that was the rude awakening. People's like, how did you do it? What drove you? And what drove me was desperation, away from pain.
For sure.
Desperation.
For sure.
That's what drove me to the London School of Economics. And I thought, when I get there, I'm going to be around the smartest people in the world.
And then you
And
realize
everything's
otherwise.
going to be perfect.
Yeah.
And then I get there
You,
and
oh
I
my
meet a
God.
lot of traumatized rich kids that have
Yeah.
had everything. And that trauma is real.
It's real.
If you're rich, if you're a rich kid and you're at the London School of Economics, you become a drug addict or you commit suicide, that's real trauma. They didn't experience any of the physical indignities that I did. So what the fuck is going on? And that's what I probably spent the last 20 years of my life trying to figure
All
out.
culminating in this new documentary you're doing, which is fascinating. I don't know how much
That's
you want
true.
to talk
No,
about it.
I mean,
I don't know how much you want to talk about it. It's really captivating to hear you talk
it's so
about
funny because the answer to that question is in this documentary. We're like, what the fuck? If this is not the answer, what the fuck is going on? And here I am making a film about it, right? But yeah, I mean, I don't know how much time we have. We can
got a few
tease
minutes.
it.
We got a few more minutes. I'd love you to tease it and just give us an idea, like, just
Okay. Last year, I met a doctor around this time, and he is the Einstein of modern anesthesiology. He's a very famous doctor.
Mm-hmm.
And he figured out that post-traumatic stress, trauma, which most people that have, they don't even would never think they have PTSD.
Sure.
But they know they have trauma. But
something's going on.
They know something's
can't
going on.
Can't put a finger on
you
it.
Can't. They're uncomfortable.
Okay.
This doctor figured out that whether you're a housewife or a Delta Force officer or special forces, or you're incarcerated, that post-traumatic stress is not mental, but a physical injury to the sympathetic nervous system. And it can be that sympathetic nervous system, which is a gangle of nerves called the stellate ganglion on each side of your neck. That's your fight or flight. That can be reset to the pre-trauma state in a very simple outpatient procedure in a day or two. Non-invasive.
Pretty bold claim.
Pretty bold claim. But you can, go Google Dr. Eugene Lipov, go to Dr. Eugene Lipov, Eugene, DrEugenelipov.com.
Right.
And check him out. I mean, Obama was endorsing this treatment as far back as 2010 before the effect. This has been on 60 Minutes. It's been on Joe Rogan.
So you're talking to this guy, you're putting this documentary around.
This doctor's become one of my best friends. In
right.
fact, we just, we're in the middle of signing a book deal. We're just in the contract phase of finalizing a book deal with a major publisher. And that's what the film is about. So what's different is whenever you've seen this before, it's been associated with the extreme. Now it's associated, a 9/11 first responder, a warrior, a sexual assault victim. So people watch it and they don't think it's for them. What this film, that's going to be part of what's in the film and the book. But what's happening now is this is coming to everyday people. Housewives are doing this that were just psychologically tortured by their parents, that have the symptoms. All these symptoms are always the same. It's lack of sleep, high anxiety, hypervigilance, doom, right? Why is it always the same if it's mental? Why is it identical in a Delta Force soldier or a housewife
in how it manifests
that was abandoned by her father? It's always the same because it's physical.
Right.
And this doctor, this is the greatest medical innovation of the 21st century. Definitely, I think the greatest medical innovation since the polio vaccine.
And you're on the cutting edge of documenting.
Well, this is a good example.
All of this.
This is a really good example of what I was talking about in terms of the ability to see. When I saw this and I became friends with this doctor and he's become one of my best friends and we're writing a book together, right? I thought, I didn't see soldiers. No one else had thought about this.
Because you're at Fort Bragg dealing with special forces and the colonel that runs it. Yes.
I'm partnered with special forces. They're producing the film with me. I've been given unmitigated access and I'm shooting at a jail in the Deep South next month.
Yeah.
Right. But my point is that I didn't see the extreme. I saw the extreme as part of it, but what I saw was regular people. That's what I'm talking about when I'm talking about pain and being an artist. And then pain giving me the ability to see beyond the extreme. And how can I bring this to like a baker, a CEO, anybody, the average person walking down the street, a housewife.
Right.
No one, I don't think anyone had seen that before. The doctor would tell you that no one had seen it for the everyman. In the last 6 months, I've sent 3 wealthy white men, not that means anything because we're all the fucking same,
right?
But 3 wealthy white men that had extreme childhood trauma to get this treatment. Before these guys met me, they would never say they had post-traumatic stress. But in knowing me and me talking about it, they all reached out and said, I have those symptoms. And in all 3 cases, because they were close friends of mine, wealthy white men, one's a Hollywood guy that lives on the Upper East Side of New York, one's a guy in Portland who his company did $120 million last year, and the other one's the grandson of a billionaire. And in all three cases, I showed up in Chicago and I did this on them. It's completely altered the course of their lives and the way they interact with people and their comfort in their own body.
I'm excited.
So that's
I'm
what
excited to
I'm
see
talking
this
about when I'm
documentary.
talking about empathy, what
Right.
it can do for you.
All right. Well, this is obviously, I could talk all day about this stuff. This is exciting. We've got to cut it short here, but this has been great, Jamie. Been a wonderful interview.
We covered a lot of ground.
We did, yeah. Again, ladies and gentlemen, The Iconist by Mr. Jamie Mustard. Amazing book. This documentary, I'm psyched to see it. I'll be in line, whatever it takes. And thank you for coming by Halfcast.
Thank you, Raymond. This has been a special one and a different one. It's there's some sort of brotherhood here. So,
absolutely.
Yeah.
Likewise, sir.
I cannot thank you enough.
Yeah.
For this convo, Raymond.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
All right. This is Ray Lane with Halfcast on talkcastpdx.com. Check us out. We'll be on next week also with another exciting guest. So just stay tuned. Have a great day, folks.